What if I told you there's a type of person who makes others so uncomfortable that they literally can't stay in the same room for too long? Picture this. You're at a party, having what you think is normal small talk, when suddenly someone looks you dead in the eye and says, "You seem like you're carrying a lot of pain from your childhood. Want to talk about it?" Your blood runs cold. Your palms get sweaty. Every instinct screams, "Run." Welcome to the world of the INFJ, the personality type that's so intense, so penetrating, and so emotionally overwhelming that 97% of the population simply cannot handle their reality. We're talking about people who don't just live life. They dissect it, analyze it, and feel every single emotion like it's been amplified through 1,000 speakers. But here's the kicker. They can't turn it off. Imagine having emotional X-ray vision that you never asked for, seeing through people's masks when they desperately want to keep them on, and feeling everyone's pain as if it were your own. Sounds exhausting, right? Well, that's just Tuesday for an INFJ. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the most misunderstood personality type on the planet. We're going to explore why being around an INFJ feels like having your soul examined under a microscope, why their very existence challenges everything other people believe about relationships and authenticity, and why most folks would rather run a marathon in flip-flops than spend an entire weekend with one of these emotional ninjas. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why INFJs are both the most sought-after and most avoided people in any room they enter. 1. The rarity factor, being 1 in a million. Let's start with the basics. INFJs make up only 1 to 3% of the population. That's like finding a needle in a haystack, folks. When you're that rare, you're bound to be misunderstood. Think about it. If 97% of people around you think and feel differently, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. This rarity isn't just a number game. It's about being fundamentally different in how you process the world. While most people are content with surface-level interactions and small talk, INFJs are constantly digging deeper, seeking meaning in everything. They can't help but look beyond what's obvious, and this makes other types uncomfortable. Most personality types prefer predictable social interactions. They want to know what to expect when they talk to someone. But INFJs? They're like walking question marks. They'll ask you things that make you stop and think, "Wait, why is this person asking me about my childhood fears when we just met?" This unpredictability makes others nervous. The thing is, INFJs don't choose to be this way. It's hardwired into their brains. They literally can't turn off their need to understand people on a deeper level. While an ESTP might be perfectly happy talking about the weather or last night's game, an INFJ is wondering why you chose that particular topic and what it reveals about your current emotional state. 2. The emotional intensity that overwhelms others. Here's where things get really interesting. INFJs don't just feel emotions, they experience them like a tsunami. When they're happy, they're over the moon. When they're sad, it's like the world is ending. This emotional intensity isn't something they can dial down, and it makes other personality types extremely uncomfortable. Most people have emotional walls. They've learned to keep their feelings at a manageable level, sharing just enough to maintain relationships without getting too vulnerable. INFJs? They're like open books written in a language most people can't read. Their emotions are so deep and complex that others feel overwhelmed just being around them. Think about your typical office environment. You've got your ESFJs who want everyone to get along nicely, your ENTJs who want to focus on results, and your ISTPs who just want to be left alone to do their work. Then in walks an INFJ who can sense that Sarah from accounting is going through a divorce even though she hasn't told anyone, that the boss is feeling insecure about the new project, and that the tension in the room is because Mike and Jennifer had an argument last week. This emotional radar system that INFJs possess is exhausting for others to be around. They don't want to be analyzed or understood at such a deep level. They want to keep their emotional lives separate from their work or casual friendships. But INFJs can't help themselves. They see emotions the way other people see colors. 3. The mind-reading phenomenon that freaks people out. Let's talk about something that really gets under people's skin. The INFJ's uncanny ability to read between the lines. It's not actually mind-reading, but it sure feels like it to everyone else. INFJs pick up on micro-expressions, voice tones, body language, and energy shifts that most people miss completely. Picture this scenario. You're having coffee with an INFJ friend, and you mention that your weekend was fine. Most people would accept that answer and move on. But the INFJ notices that your shoulders tensed up when you said it, your voice dropped slightly, and you avoided eye contact for just a split second. Suddenly, they're asking if something happened that bothered you, and you're sitting there thinking, how did they know? This ability makes other personality types feel exposed and vulnerable. Nobody likes feeling like they can't hide their true feelings, especially when they're not ready to share them. INFJs don't mean to invade people's privacy, they're just naturally wired to pick up on these subtle cues. The problem is that most people aren't comfortable with this level of transparency. They want to control what they share and when they share it. Having someone around who can see through their carefully constructed facades feels threatening. It's like being naked when everyone else is fully clothed. 4. The perfectionist standards that make others feel inadequate. INFJs have impossibly high standards, not just for themselves, but for the world around them. They see how things could be better, how relationships could be deeper, how systems could be more efficient, and how people could be more authentic. This vision of perfection is both their greatest strength and their biggest social challenge. When you're around an INFJ, you might start feeling like you're not doing enough, not being genuine enough, not living up to your potential. It's not that they're judging you, well, sometimes they are, but their very existence challenges others to be better versions of themselves. Most people aren't ready for that kind of pressure. Take relationships, for example. While other types might be satisfied with surface-level connections, INFJs want deep, meaningful bonds. They want to know your dreams, your fears, your childhood traumas, and your biggest hopes for the future. They want authenticity, vulnerability, and emotional intimacy. That's terrifying for most personality types. ENTPs might enjoy intellectual debates, but they don't necessarily want to bare their souls. ESTJs want efficient, productive relationships that serve a purpose. ISFPs want gentle, non-invasive connections. The INFJ's hunger for depth and meaning can feel overwhelming and exhausting to these other types. 5. The social contradiction that confuses everyone. Here's something that really throws people off. INFJs are simultaneously social butterflies and hermits. They can be the life of the party one day and completely disappear for weeks the next. This inconsistency makes other personality types feel confused and sometimes rejected. INFJs have what's called an ambivert tendency, but it's more complex than just being somewhere between introverted and extroverted. They can be incredibly charismatic and engaging when they want to be, drawing people in with their warmth and insight. But then they hit a wall and need to retreat completely to recharge. Most personality types have predictable social patterns. Extroverts are generally outgoing and energized by social interaction. Introverts are typically more reserved and need alone time to recharge. But INFJs? They're like social chameleons who can adapt to any situation but then need extensive recovery time. This unpredictability makes it hard for others to know how to relate to them. One week, the INFJ is organizing group activities and being the emotional support system for everyone. The next week, they're not answering texts and declining all invitations. Other types start to wonder if they did something wrong or if the INFJ actually likes them. 6. The visionary thinking that seems impractical to others. INFJs are natural visionaries. They see possibilities that others can't even imagine. While most people are focused on what is, INFJs are constantly thinking about what could be. This future-oriented thinking can make them seem unrealistic or impractical to more grounded personality types. Think about how different personality types approach problems. An ISTJ will look at the facts, follow established procedures, and implement proven solutions. An ENTP will brainstorm creative alternatives and enjoy the intellectual challenge. But an INFJ? They'll envision an entirely different way of approaching the whole situation that nobody else even considered. This visionary thinking is both inspiring and frustrating for others. On one hand, INFJs can see solutions and possibilities that others miss. On the other hand, their ideas often seem too idealistic or complex to implement. More practical types get frustrated with what seems like unrealistic thinking. For example, while others might focus on fixing a broken system, the INFJ is imagining a completely different system that would eliminate the problems altogether. While others are thinking about next quarter's results, the INFJ is thinking about how the company could transform society over the next decade. 7. The all-or-nothing approach that intimidates others. INFJs don't do anything halfway. When they commit to something, whether it's a project, a relationship, or a cause, they're all in. This intensity can be overwhelming for personality types that prefer a more balanced, moderate approach to life. In friendships, for instance, INFJs want deep, meaningful connections. They're not interested in having 50 casual acquaintances. They want 5 ride-or-die friends who really know them. This all-or-nothing approach to relationships can feel intense and demanding to others. Other personality types might be comfortable with different levels of friendship. They might have work friends, hobby friends, family friends, and close friends, each serving different purposes in their lives. But INFJs want every relationship to have depth and meaning, which can feel overwhelming to those who prefer compartmentalized connections. The same pattern shows up in their work and interests. While others might dabble in various hobbies or approach work with steady consistency, INFJs tend to become completely absorbed in whatever captures their attention. They'll research every aspect, dive into the deeper meanings, and pursue excellence with an intensity that can make others feel inadequate about their own efforts. 8. The emotional responsibility that burdens relationships. Here's something that really wears people out. INFJs often become the emotional caretakers in their relationships. They're naturally empathetic and can sense when others are struggling, but they also feel compelled to help fix those problems. This creates an imbalanced dynamic that many personality types find exhausting. INFJs have this amazing ability to make people feel understood and supported. They listen without judgment, offer insightful advice, and provide emotional support when others need it most. Sounds great, right? The problem is that this often becomes a one-way street. Other personality types start relying on the INFJ for emotional support, but they don't necessarily reciprocate. They begin to see the INFJ as their personal therapist or emotional dumping ground. Meanwhile, the INFJ's own emotional needs often go unmet because others assume they're so strong and insightful that they don't need support themselves. This creates resentment on both sides. The INFJ feels used and unappreciated, while others feel guilty about not being able to provide the same level of emotional support in return. It's a toxic cycle that eventually breaks down most relationships between INFJs and other personality types. 9. The need for authenticity that challenges social norms. INFJs have an almost allergic reaction to fakeness. They can spot inauthentic behavior from a mile away, and they simply cannot participate in social situations that feel fake or meaningless to them. This creates problems in a world where social conventions often require a certain amount of pretense. While other personality types might be comfortable with small talk, office politics, or social pleasantries, INFJs find these interactions draining and pointless. They want real conversations about real topics with real emotions. This makes them seem antisocial or difficult to others who are just trying to maintain smooth social interactions. Think about typical workplace social dynamics. Most people understand that you're supposed to act interested in your coworkers' weekend plans, laugh at your boss's mediocre jokes, and participate in team-building activities even if you find them silly. These are just the social lubricants that keep professional relationships running smoothly. But INFJs struggle with this level of social pretense. They'd rather have one genuine conversation about someone's actual struggles and aspirations than spend an hour making small talk about the weather. This makes others uncomfortable because it challenges the social norms that most people rely on to feel safe in group settings. 10. The complexity that exhausts simple thinking types. INFJs don't think in simple terms. Everything is connected to everything else in their minds. They see patterns, relationships, and implications that others miss. While this makes them excellent at understanding complex systems and solving complicated problems, it also makes them exhausting to be around for personality types that prefer straightforward thinking. Imagine trying to plan a simple group dinner with an INFJ. While others are focused on practical concerns like what restaurant to choose and what time to meet, the INFJ is thinking about the group dynamics, who might feel left out, whether the chosen restaurant aligns with everyone's values, how the seating arrangement will affect conversations, and what the whole experience means for the relationships involved. This level of complexity in thinking can make simple decisions feel overwhelming to others. They just want to pick a restaurant and have dinner, but the INFJ is turning it into a psychological and philosophical analysis. Other personality types start to feel like everything becomes unnecessarily complicated when INFJs are involved. 11. The independence that threatens dependent types. Despite their caring nature, INFJs are fiercely independent. They don't need others to complete them or validate their existence. This independence can be threatening to personality types that prefer more dependent or codependent relationships. INFJs are comfortable being alone with their thoughts. They can entertain themselves, solve their own problems, and find fulfillment in solitude. While this might sound healthy, and it is, it can make others feel unnecessary or unimportant in the INFJ's life. Personality types that derive their sense of worth from being needed might struggle with the INFJ's self-sufficiency. They might try to create dependencies or problems that need solving, only to find that the INFJ doesn't actually need rescuing. This can lead to feelings of rejection or inadequacy in others. 12. The moral compass that judges others' choices. INFJs have strong moral convictions and aren't afraid to live by them. They have clear ideas about right and wrong, and they struggle to understand how others can make choices that go against their values. This moral intensity can feel judgmental to other personality types, even when that's not the INFJ's intention. While other types might be more flexible about ethical gray areas or willing to compromise their values for practical reasons, INFJs tend to have firm moral boundaries. They won't participate in activities that feel wrong to them, and they have a hard time respecting people who consistently make choices that contradict their ethical framework. This doesn't mean INFJs are self-righteous or preachy, though some can be. It just means they live by a strong internal moral compass that guides their decisions. Other personality types might feel judged or criticized by the INFJ's unwillingness to compromise on certain values, even when no judgment is intended. The protective mechanisms that others can't understand. Because INFJs are so sensitive and empathetic, they develop protective mechanisms that other personality types find confusing or off-putting. They might suddenly become cold and distant when they feel overwhelmed, or they might completely cut people out of their lives who have repeatedly hurt them. This protective behavior seems extreme to other types who are more accustomed to gradual boundary setting or direct confrontation. INFJs tend to give people many chances while building up internal resentment, then suddenly reach a breaking point where they withdraw completely. This pattern confuses others who didn't realize there was a problem building up. The famous INFJ door slam is a perfect example of this. While other personality types might gradually distance themselves from someone or have a direct conversation about problems in the relationship, INFJs often endure difficult relationships until they reach their limit, then completely cut the person out of their life without warning. Conclusion. So there you have it. The complex reality of why most personality types struggle to handle INFJs for extended periods. It's not that INFJs are bad people or that other types are wrong for finding them challenging. It's simply a matter of fundamental differences in how people process the world, relationships, and emotions. INFJs operate on a different frequency than most people. Their emotional intensity, depth-seeking nature, visionary thinking, and moral convictions create a unique way of being in the world that can feel overwhelming to others. They're like emotional and intellectual athletes competing in a world of casual players. Their intensity and skill level can make others feel inadequate or exhausted. The key for INFJs is learning to modulate their intensity and find people who appreciate their unique gifts. For other personality types, the challenge is learning to appreciate the depth and insight that INFJs bring to relationships, even if it feels uncomfortable at times. Understanding these dynamics can help both INFJs and other personality types build better relationships. INFJs can learn to give others space to process at their own pace, while other types can learn to appreciate the growth and insight that comes from being challenged by an INFJ's presence. Remember, personality differences aren't flaws to be fixed, they're variations to be understood and appreciated. The world needs the INFJ's depth and vision just as much as it needs the ESTP's spontaneity, the ISTJ's reliability, and the ENFP's enthusiasm. The challenge is learning how all these different types can coexist and support each other's growth. What matters most is recognizing that these differences exist, understanding why they create challenges, and working together to build relationships that honor everyone's unique way of being in the world. After all, our differences are what make human relationships so rich and complex, even when they're difficult to handle.